Hello everyone. It seems that the United States of America's own fully leftist hometown of Portland, Oregon, have finally done what Seattle did in the summer of this year. So, according to Newsweek, protesters erect new autonomous zone in Portland to prevent black families' eviction. And this article is from about 3 days ago. So we appear to now be in day 3 of this autonomous zone, but we'll go through this article first before we get into the nitty-gritty detail of this target-rich environment. So, Portland protesters repurposed fences and barricades to erect a new autonomous zone in an effort to resist the eviction of a black family. Protesters have been camping out for months to prevent the eviction of the Kinney family, but on Tuesday morning, tensions escalated and protesters used fences and barricades set up by law enforcement officials to surround the home, which has been named the Red House on Mississippi due to its location on Mississippi Avenue in North Portland. So I'm not too sure if this Kinney family are being evicted unfairly or unjustly. I don't really have many details on this, but I do know for a fact that when it comes to Antifa, the facts don't matter. All that matters is a black family is losing their home, and that is enough to completely take over however much space they've taken over and declare it theirs and, secede from the US for that square kilometre or whatever they've taken over. Zane Sparling of the Portland Tribune shared photos and videos on Twitter of the autonomous zone set up around the home. Portland has a new autonomous zone here on Mississippi Avenue, Sparling wrote, featuring a video showing fences and other items used as barricades to stop law enforcement officials from entering the area. Let's have a quick look. As you can see here, it's very rudimentary makeshift stuff, as it always is with these places. There's no real design or thought behind it. They just think, we've got to protect this Red House, we're going to protect it. So the article goes on, according to a website for the Red House, the home was closed on in 2018, but the Kinney family, who had lived in the home for 65 years, challenged the foreclosure. Despite the challenge and a long legal battle, a Multnomah County judge sanctioned the eviction in February, commanding the county sheriff's office to remove the family. The judgment was issued prior to state and federal emergency moratoriums. The eviction moratorium does not apply to evictions based on post-non-judicial foreclosures, such as this case, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office wrote in the press release. So surprise, surprise, it seems that, this family were trying to fight the law and the law won. Because for those who don't know what a foreclosure is, it's a legal process where a lender attempts to recover the balance of a loan from a borrower by basically taking their collateral. So I assume this house was used as collateral for a loan. And obviously whoever used it as collateral couldn't pay back their loan, so now they're getting evicted from their house because they don't own it anymore. But obviously Antifa have other ideas. Following the judge's orders, protesters had gathered outside the house to prevent the family's eviction. Newsweek reached out to the Kinney's family spokesperson for the comment, but did not receive a reply before publication. According to a release from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, at approximately 5 a.m. local time on Tuesday, officers with the assistance of the Portland Police Bureau revisited a property in the 4400 block of Mississippi Avenue in North Portland to resecure a home in which the occupants were previously ordered to be removed by court. I'm sorry, they're getting evicted. There's nothing you can do. So obviously this escalated because it's what Antifa do, and a press release from the Portland Police Department echoed similar statements, but noted that over the past 3 months people have been illegally trespassing on properties on Mississippi Avenue, including a house and on privately owned lots. Today, police encountered people trespassing at these locations. So obviously, it didn't stop there. According to the press release from the Portland Police Department, over the past 3 months, call log data shows that at least 81 calls have been placed for issues related to these properties and the immediate area, which is close to a call a day. Calls for service included, but were not limited to, fights, disturbances, shots fired, burglary, thefts, vandalism, noise violations, trespassing, threats, including by armed individuals, and for illegally blocking traffic, sidewalks, and access to homes, the release states. It's just crazy how far Antifa go just to virtue signal, because this is all just to stop a black family getting evicted because they don't own a home that they lost in collateral. So naturally, this autonomous zone's a bit of a shithole, and there's actually half an hour of aerial footage that I am basically just going to use in the background for the rest of this video. link in the description for the parts that I miss out, because there's half an hour of it. There's no way I can talk to cover half an hour of this aerial shot. But there's a lot more to this story than just, oh, doesn't this autonomous zone look like a shithole like you'd expect? Andy No was personally there because he lives in Portland and has some footage of what it actually life is like in the autonomous zone, so we don't have to kind of guess from this aerial footage. So here's some right now. So much like other autonomous zones we've seen, such as in Seattle, you know, the first day it's just a big party basically. Loud music, constantly being blasted out, disturbing the bloody neighbours, and people just generally there with quite a hyped vibe, which is understandable if you're an idiot, which people setting up autonomous zones almost exclusively are. So here comes a second clip. Yes, that appears to be armed police officers being kicked out of the autonomous zone by screeching retards. Probably some sort of tactical retreat, as there will be armed people within this autonomous zone, as there has been in every other autonomous zone, and it's probably best for the police officers to get back and regroup to try and retake the autonomous zone and dismantle it, assuming that's what they want to do. And surprisingly, that's exactly what the Portland police chief told them to do. So Portland police chief tells protesters to put down their weapons as armed activists set up autonomous zone protected by booby traps to protest eviction of black family as violent crime spikes in the neighbourhood. I mean, that's a hell of a title. I know it's from the Daily Mail as it usually is, but my lord. Who would have thunk that violent crime would have spiked when you take the police out of an area? So the Daily Mail goes into it. Armed protesters have set up a new autonomous zone in Portland to protest the eviction of a black family, which you already know about. Demonstrators have barricaded themselves in the property, dubbed the Red House on the Mississippi, and have set up booby traps, laid down homemade spike strips to puncture the tyres of vehicles, and are stockpiling weapons as they prepare to defend the home. Oh my. Tim Pool might be right after all. Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle issued a plea to demonstrate Wednesday to put down your weapons and warned officers will use force if necessary to clear the occupation, which I'm totally behind. Because honestly, if these people are arming up to try and defend a family illegally living in a home that they do not own anymore, I'm totally for the breakup of this ridiculous autonomous zone and cracking skulls along the way if they dare to oppose. In Minecraft, by the way, YouTube, I mean cracking skulls in Minecraft. So the Daily Mail goes on. The same day, people were seen setting up more barricades, including spike strips made of boards and nails, and armed guards were stationed at intersections keeping watch, reported Oregon Live, in efforts to prevent the removal of the Kinney family. By Wednesday night, blockade stretched at least 2.5 blocks from North Skidmore to Blandena Streets along North Mississippi and Albina Avenues, as occupiers cordoned off parts of the road, pitched up tents and huddled round a small fire as night fell. And there's a bit of detail that we went through in the last article. A group of activists have camped at the home ever since to express their outrage against gentrification and the eviction of the black and indigenous family. Okay, it's not gentrification if they lost their home in collateral because they couldn't pay off a loan. The outrage came to a head Tuesday when the property owner complained people were trespassing and officers showed up and made several arrests. It's a shame they bloody stopped. Now, the Daily Mail also has a lot of detailed pictures of exactly what's going on in the autonomous zone. I just have a look yourself. I think this aerial footage is good enough for this video. Because if you've been watching, it just seems like a lot of people standing around not really knowing what to do, with a lot of makeshift shacks. I don't understand how these people can be happy doing this, but, well, there we go. But there is then quite a long piece about what Chief Lavelle had to say. So, Chief Lavelle said in a video message Wednesday that police were aware of a stockpile of weapons in the zone. Portland police share the community's concern about the barricades, occupation, and criminal activity on North Mississippi. Those present at the barricades should leave it behind, put down your weapons, and allow the neighbourhood to return to peace and order, he said. We are aware of the stockpile of weapons and the presence of firearms. We are aware of the threats on the community, to media, to police. We've seen the attacks. I don't understand why you can't get the army in on this. This is a domestic terror group at this point. He warned that police will enforce the law and use force if necessary to restore order to the neighbourhood. It can be avoided with those participating ending it peacefully by putting down their weapons and leaving the barricades. Lavelle said neighbours around the homes are suffering and told people to stay cautious and avoid the area altogether if possible. People living near the occupation have suffered for weeks. That has grown worse. We understand their suffering, he said. Remain cautious as you come and go from your home or business. For your own safety, avoid confrontations around the occupation. Those without need to enter should avoid the area for the time being. It's a no-go zone. It's a complete no-go zone. Given it's Portland, I'm surprised it's taken this long. Portland is, from what I can tell, the capital of leftism in the UK. It's where whenever there's a protest in the US, there always seems to be one in Portland. And they seem to get more and more radical until we do end up getting to this point where there's aerial footage. I mean, look at the screen. Look at this place. This is what they have ended up with. So the Mail then go into a lot more detail about basically saying the same stuff about crime spiking and things like that. I don't think that's particularly important at the moment, since you get the idea. But they do get onto this interesting bit. So the mayor admitted that there are issues around equal access to housing, but said the occupation is not the right way to protest. There are many ways to protest and work towards needed reform. Illegally occupying private property, openly carrying weapons, threatening and intimidating people are not among them, he said. The mayor's office later said all lawful means does not include the use of tear gas after it was banned in the city during protests earlier this year. Nice one. Clashes had broken out Tuesday when cops arrived on the scene to fence off property for the legal owner. Demonstrators hurled rocks at officers, sprayed a fire extinguisher at them, and damaged police vehicles outside the property in an attempt to set up an autonomous zone there. A total of 7 people were arrested during the incident, including for charges such as disorderly conduct, interfering with a peace officer, and resisting arrest. A peace officer? Surely they mean police officer. Police were outnumbered and left the scene quickly by around 10 AM, leaving activists to cordon off the home and the surrounding area. So, there you go. They attacked police, got them to go away, and then set up, the paradise you are seeing on screen. I hope it's worth it, Antifa, because I honestly hope every single one of you gets arrested and thrown in jail. You can't just go around terrorising neighbourhoods because you don't like the judgment that a judge gave. One that, from what I can tell just from the sources I've got, there wasn't anything wrong with the judgment. I need you, protesters, to show me what was unfair about it, because I am not finding anything at the moment. Anyway, back to the Mail. Following the arrests and the clashes, protesters Tuesday afternoon used power tools to set up the barricade with wire fencing, debris and wood pallets to block off street access to the home. The demonstrators also hung signs saying "Stop the foreclosures" and "No jurisdiction." Great. Well, let's see how well that goes when you all get shot. The violence came after the removal of the Kinney family, who in 2002 were forced to take out a new mortgage to pay defence lawyers for William Thrid. What? He was sent to prison. Oh, right, that's the guy's name. He was sent to prison at the age of 17 for 2 5-year sentences, totaling 10 years, over an automobile incident. The Red House on Mississippi Group has said. William, who is now 35, told Oregon Live, "It's devastating, it's almost like a dream, like a nightmare." He was one of 7 arrested Tuesday, the website reports. It's almost like he has to stop committing crime. His mum, Julie, added, "My husband has been here since he was 4. This has been his family home. He's completely devastated." The Oregonian reported that the house had belonged to the Kinney family since the 1950s. The family argued in court that the eviction moratorium in place until the new year should apply to their case, but a judge in September found it did not apply because their struggles began before the pandemic. A GoFundMe group to try and raise $250,000 to repurchase the home has made more than $90,000 of donations as of Wednesday morning. And that's fine. If they can raise the money to buy it back, I've got nothing wrong with that. But you can't just force it back by having an autonomous zone. But obviously, Antifa are Antifa, and they will set up their paradise that you can see on screen, make target-rich environment zones, all in the name of anti-gentrification. But I'm sorry, If your son was involved in a quote-unquote automobile incident, which I would not be surprised if it meant he stole it, and you have to buy a lawyer, because as far as I know, in the US you do have the right to a state lawyer, so it's not like they didn't have a choice and they were left with nothing if they didn't do this. Look, if you have to mortgage your house again to buy a lawyer, as bad as I can feel for you, that's the law. You risked not being able to pay back your house to try and get your son an easier sentence. Elsewise, you risk the state lawyer and get a slightly longer one. But if he committed a crime, he committed a crime, and if he's in jail for 10 years, I can only assume he did. But this whole thing of Antifa coming around and making the paradise you see on screen, all because a family had to be evicted. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't have much sympathy for you if you sign a contract and you have to deal with the consequences of signing that contract. It's not gentrification just because someone made a bad choice. And you are absolutely not in a position to make demands and make the paradise you see on screen because you don't like the way your judgment went. And the fact that crime has increased, wow, imagine my shock. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up like Seattle, where 2 people die and there's many more shootings going on and countless amounts of rapes. But no, as I keep saying, it's a paradise you see on screen. Honestly, I cannot deal with any more of this. And that's pretty much all the news we have for the Portland Autonomous Zone. So that's pretty much all I've got for you today. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.